I have a question as coming out of traditional Christianity. If there's no longer a law, which we know is false, then what is the point of having a high priest? Because I've always been raised with, Yeshua as our high priest and hearing it constantly, but then hearing that the law is no more. So what is the point of having a high priest if there's no law to dictate the need for a high priest?
Okay, so this is a good question.
Wow, yeah, excellent.
Thank you, Evelyn, for the question. And if you have a question like this, once again, I would invite you to call our comment line and leave us a message.
These are dangerous questions.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like she points out, there are certain questions that are they're childlike questions, right? They're just they're the questions.
They're obvious questions.
Yeah, and a child would ask these questions. A child who's engaged in reading the text, taking it seriously, thinking about, reflecting on it, and then would ask this kind of question. And it's the question like, wait a minute, you're not supposed to ask that.
Shh. Hey, no questions. So basically, I can tell you what I think the mainstream Christian pastor would say. And that is that the law is not actually done away with. The law is spiritualized. In other words, I keep a Sabbath, but I keep the Sabbath in my heart. I rest in Yeshua. Purity is in the heart. It's no longer in food. Festivals are neither here nor there. We can keep whatever we want. And in the same way, the physical temple that was here on earth was just a physical representation of the true temple that is going on in the heavens. And the real high priest is Yeshua, who does the work, the ongoing, continued work, as Hebrews says. Baruch Hashem for that, right? And I was reminded of this constantly through our Passover Seder, that the high priest, for us as believers, is actually doing work. He is actually putting the blood of his blood on the altar in the heavenly place. And so I think the thought from a Christian standpoint, and this has been argued to me before, this is why I believe that this is a standard Christian view of this, is that once the temple, that basically Yeshua comes, he dies on the cross, he does away with the law, and he's now all this is instituted in the heavens, and this is why the temple was destroyed, is because there's something better, and the temple was just a shadow of what was going on. The big problem with this view, and jump in here anytime, Rob, is that this would suggest that the heavenly temple was not around or was not being utilized before Christ came and died on the cross. And this is, I mean, we've talked about this at length, in the new covenant not being time-bound. In other words, people were not saved differently before the Messiah died on the cross. Everyone who is saved has been saved by the blood of the Messiah and the Lamb that was slain from the foundations of the world, right? So the blood being applied to the altar in the heavenly places has been done forever, in perpetuity, both ways, right? In eternity, both ways. And so the idea that we needed a physical high priest before that, now granted, I should quickly say, it is obviously true that the high priest here on earth was nothing more than a representation and a shadow of the greater thing, which is the Messiah Yeshua, and being our high priest. And interestingly enough, when the Messiah comes, it seems like in the millennial reign, the Messiah comes and he takes over as high priest in the physical temple. So there is a physical high priest again. It's just Yeshua, but there are priests, right? Anything to say on that?
It gets into, I'm tracking. It gets into the problem of, and we were talking about this on our Greek class, reading in Romans 7 this last quarter at TorahResource Institute.
Yes.
Second year Greek, reading Romans 7, and this notion of sarkinos, fleshiness versus pneumatikos, which is spiritual. And there's a tendency, I think, in it could be in Western Enlightenment thought or whatever. I don't know. Of some, maybe no, but it's before what we call the Enlightenment. Anyway, the idea of flesh bad, it's almost a Gnostic kind of idea. Flesh bad, spirit good. Or no, I don't mean to say flesh, because Paul uses flesh metaphorically, but that physicality bad.
Right.
Like the physical. So like you're talking about the Shabbat command. Oh, I keep it spiritually, and that's where the value is, and it has no physical value, right? There's no physicality to the Shabbat. And that's what we need to, and now those who've studied philosophy might be able to pinpoint the history of this idea of
Aristotle. It comes from Aristotle.
Yeah, the separation of physicality being somehow less than or bad. But we know that can't be true from the scriptures. Yeshua, it says the word became flesh and he was full of grace and truth, right? Yeshua still is physical. As a matter of fact, even his resurrected body has the scars. We know that.
Right.
So we know that when Paul talks about being spiritual, he doesn't mean non-physical, right? Okay, so I think there's something to be said that this idea is sneaking in and affecting theologians, thinking, the outward ceremonial observances really have no value because they're physical.
Don't miss any clips from Messiah Matters by clicking the subscribe button. Also, give this video a thumbs up and share it so other people can see it too.